Hello, friends. Welcome to Surviving Tomorrow, a podcast, newsletter, and publication about navigating life in an age of democratic destruction, ecological collapse, and economic irrelevance. Available for free on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Jared A. Brock, and today we are going to be discussing 10 signs that America is headed for certain collapse. You know, folks, superpowers aren't impressive. Italy, Greece, Ethiopia, Egypt, Britain, Spain, Portugal, they've all ruled the world for a time before sliding back into regular old nation status. Now, it's America's turn. The United States is going to collapse. This isn't a fear-mongering statement. It's just a fact. Everyone knows it. Whether it's in 5 years or 50 years, the days of America as global superpower are numbered. In the same way that the Romans pulled back their troops from Alexandria in Egypt and the Scottish borders in Britain, the American military-industrial complex will continue the work it started in Afghanistan and eventually withdraw 800 global military bases in order to make a last-ditch effort to enslave its own people in a soft-totalitarian panopticon surveillance state. And then it will collapse. Die-hard nationalists insist that this could never happen, but the signs of American collapse are extremely obvious. Let's dig into just 10 of them. Number 1, wealth inequality. American wealth inequality is growing too. In fact, it's already higher than the Roman empires. The stats on wealth inequality are crazy, and I would encourage you to read all of them on my Substack page or in the show notes. Never mind the gilded age of corporate tyrants like Vanderbilt and Carnegie and Rockefeller. Today's billionaires control far more wealth and political power than the monopolists of the past ever could have dreamed. And while extreme right-wingers are quick to shout communism and socialism, they fail to realize that we're not advocating central ownership or central control of the economy. That's what billionaires are working on. In fact, 2 men now control as much wealth as the bottom half of Americans. Clearly, central ownership is well underway. Number 2, debt. The numbers on American debt are truly staggering. America has nearly $29 trillion in federal debt, and this does not include state debt. Total consumer debt sits at $14.9 trillion, and half a million American families are systemically forced into bankruptcy every single year. Don't listen to those nutty modern monetary theory boosters who think we can pile up debt forever and it will not destroy our society. The bell will toll, and it will toll for us. Don't get me wrong, the MMTers are technically right. We can print money forever, but every unbacked printed dollar erodes trust and purchasing power. When society is built on a literal lie, it's only a matter of time before it falls. Number 3, economic instability. Because of how hyper-elites have structured the economy, we're stuck with permanent economic instability. I'm talking insane asset bubbles followed by massive crashes that hurt those who didn't benefit in the good times and suffer most in the bad times. Well, it's never occurred to the corporations who control our countries, but people want to live in economically stable places. Because America refuses to deliver on true long-term economic stability for the majority, it's no wonder we're currently seeing a national strike, and why many of us with the power to do so have already moved overseas. Number 4, home ownership in crisis. Rentership, too. I've been sounding an alarm on this one for a while. People have no idea the tidal wave that's about to shatter the American middle class once and for all. House prices are going to $10 million in our lifetime. And if we don't ban for-profit residential real estate investment and overthrow the corrupt zoning boards that keep young families from building houses they can actually afford, we will see a houselessness crisis never witnessed before in human history. Number 5, crony corporate politics. Democracy, of course, has never existed in America, but the corporate oligarchy now controls Congress lock, stock, and barrel. They even own the Federal Reserve, which is in charge of the economy. There's honestly no point in voting anymore unless you do it with your money, because that's how candidates are actually selected in America. Number 6, environmental instability. When I was younger, my wife and I visited Tikal in Guatemala, the New York City of the pre-Columbian Maya civilization. They destroyed their environment, and then it destroyed them. It's really simple. Nations that don't protect people, wildlife, soil, water, and air eventually go extinct. It's not personal, it's just science. As one of my commenters put it, You can't eat, drink, or breathe money. It takes 1,000 years for nature to grow 3 centimeters of topsoil, and America has managed to burn through several feet in the past century. Now, America has only 60 natural harvests left. An excellent book on this topic is called Empires of Food, Feast, Famine, and the Rise and Fall of Civilization. Highly recommended. Number 7, the vampire economy. Let's face it, friends, the American productive economy is dead. Most of the major brands that we know and love are actually zombie companies that burn cash and have never been profitable a day in their short-lived corporate lives. Rather than producing products and services of real value, corporate America is just a giant game of extractivism, a dung pile of rent-seeking skimmers who bloodsuck time and wealth from the productive poor while contributing nothing of real value. I'm talking about landlords, bankers, stock investors, and crypto speculators who would rather treat Bitcoin as a Ponzi scheme instead of as freedom money to stave off abhorrent central bank surveillance currencies. When a nation stops creating real value and starts eating itself like a snake, its days are mathematically numbered. Number 8, mass hysteria. Yes, I'm looking at you, anti-vaxxers, and QAnoners, and cancel culturists, and people who vote for Republicans and Democrats. America is now filled with conspiracy theorists and with people who draw the line and refuse to dialogue with people outside of their own little box. This signals a total breakdown of personal understanding, civic goodwill, institutional trust, and national unity. America is rife with mass hysteria, and I don't know how we get back from it. Number 9, screen addiction. The invention of the smartphone will go down in history as one of the most destructive pieces of technology ever invented, certainly for destroying human time. Homo sapiens are in no way adapted for the superstimulus of digital outputs. It's quite simply, we were not made to stare at a small light bulb in a box. Between social media, streaming, pornography, gaming, shopping addictions, we're breaking our necks, frying our eyes, burning our time, and shattering any sense of offline meaning or belonging. Just wait until Gen Z and Gen Alpha are in charge of the world. It's not going to be good. Number 10, and this one's the big one, individualism. America is a culture, and of course that comes from the Latin root cultus, from which we derive the word cult. America is a culture built on a myth, the myth of rugged individualism, of one for me and all for me. It's a dog-eat-dog, survival of the fittest, winner-take-all, loser-dies-in-poverty cult where the rich prey on the poor and the masses suffer so the elites can live a little better, a little longer. America is a piece of glass that has been shattered into 331 million shards, each stabbing the next in a frantic fight for survival. Only a hard fire can forge the pieces back together again. There are those who believe that a Canadian such as myself, living in Europe, shouldn't have the right to comment on America at all. But of course, those people are usually just nationalists who fail to see that we live in a hyper-connected world where everyone's choices affect everyone else. The failure to understand this is yet another symptom of hyper-individualism. The reality, friends, is that America is a fractured, atomized nation, with each member so hell-bent on self-actualization, obsessed with concocting a singularly unique identity, and blinded by the idea that autonomy and freedom are the same thing, and they obviously aren't. Because the nation cannot fathom that it shares one common freedom, it simply cannot surrender any amount of selfhood to the collective, despite the fact that human togetherness is the number one thing correlated to human happiness. But the end isn't the end. All empires fall. It's a non-negotiable. It's just a matter of when, how, and how hard. Collapse doesn't mean disappearance, and it doesn't necessarily mean a total dystopian hellscape like the Book of Eli. But it does mean a loss of global superpower status and all the unfair advantages that came along with it, like currency supremacy and cheap goods. It means a country seriously diminished, greatly impoverished, racked with crime and disease and exploitation, and subject to the whims of the foreign corporatists who are hell-bent on extracting wealth and resources from it. You know, like the rest of the world. Normally, my articles outline a challenge facing society and offer some proposals for how to fix it. This is one of those rare posts that just points out the macro factors that will lead to the inevitable fall of America. Collapse, of course, shouldn't sit well with readers and listeners. Everyone needs to be working on solutions, big and small. And yes, peacefully turning the American landmass into a dozen or so new nations is highly preferable to a bloody second civil war. The goal, of course, isn't to maintain a hyper-violent military empire or a coercive global economic grasp on others. It's time for new ideas and ancient ideas and real servant-hearted leadership and working together. We shouldn't mourn the loss of corporate-controlled America as the global superpower. It's a monstrous menace to global freedom and widespread well-being. Now, does this mean this is China's century? Maybe. They already own America's largest pork producer and Canada's largest dairy farm, but a third of China's domestic economy is a giant real estate bubble that could seriously slow down their growth. China's rise to global superpower will all depend on their continued colonization of Africa and their ability to continue to debt trap the rest of the world via their Belt and Road Initiative, practicing capitalism abroad to enforce fake communism at home. Clearly, the world doesn't need or want a conformist culture to dictate global policy. People often say that America is the world's best hope for freedom, but as billions of people who've endured the heavy hammer of the American military-industrial complex can attest, it's simply not true. Modern corporate America doesn't equal hope, and it never has. No self-centered human institution can ever deliver the freedom that people truly need. But don't worry, America itself isn't going anywhere. After all, Rome's as gorgeous as ever, and Athens is amazing, albeit under-maintained, and both of these countries haven't been superpowers in thousands of years. America, the superpower, is waning, but it doesn't mean that places like Concord, Massachusetts won't always be gorgeous places to visit. And Texas will probably always be the barbecue capital of the world, or at least until the radical left bans meat, or the radical right makes beef raising an environmental impossibility. Maybe Canada or Mexico will annex America and finally provide free healthcare to the poor. And if the 50 states decide to split up, which they almost certainly will do in time, you never know if united Maine and New Hampshire might rule the world in desperate need of lumber and fresh water. Or maybe we don't need superpowers anymore. Maybe it's time for tinyism and a million little democracies. Either way, the United States of America won't be around to see it happen. Thanks for listening to Surviving Tomorrow. If you think that this episode is important, please email the link to your friends or share it on social media. We are 100% follower supported, so if you'd like to help us grow this community, please visit jaredbrock.com. Thanks for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.